Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today pod 37 I'll be looking at a result against Middlesbrough by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of the match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce, Patrick Van Aanholt, Mamadou Sakho and Jason Puncheon after the game. So let's begin. Patrick Van Aanholt's first goal for the Eagles proved the difference between Palace and Middlesbrough as Sam Allardyce tasted his first win at Selhurst Park as the Eagles' boss. The left-back's precise shot on 34 minutes found the net and clinched the big 3 points for Sam Allardyce's men in this basement battle, which proved vital as it moved Palace level on points with their opponents in the Premier League table and crucially out of the bottom three. Having come into the game on the back of 5 successive home league defeats, a good start was imperative for the Eagles and they produced just that as they dominated the opening half. A lively opening saw them create a good chance just 12 minutes in when Van Aanholt chipped the ball across into the area for Christian Benteke. However, the striker couldn't find any direction on his header and nodded it straight into Victor Valdez's hands. Benteke was the biggest menace to the Boro defence in the early stages, and he fired goalwards after a shot on the turn that sent Victor Valdez sprawling in vain as he had been unfairly adjudged to have handled the ball. However, while chances for Karanka's side were few and far between in the first 45 minutes, Palace were indebted to debutant Mamadou Sakho, who made a fine last-ditch tackle to prevent Christian Stuani from turning in a Negredo flick-on during a goal-mouth scramble. A goal would have been just a reward for Palace's pressure and positivity, and on 34 minutes Van Aanholt's first Palace strike sent Selhurst into delights. The Dutchman started the move when he found Johan Kabay on the edge of the box, whose shot was deflected up into the air and headed down and clear by Daniel Olala. But the ball fell to the left-back, who hit a pin-perfect effort with his weaker foot that crept into the bottom corner to give the Eagles a crucial lead. 3 minutes later it could have been 2-0 when captain of the day Jason Puncheon jinked into the area from the right-hand side and got a snapshot that Valdez managed to beat away. And after their fine display in the first half, the players were roared off at half-time by a buzzing home crowd. The second half saw Wayne Hennessy busier than he was before the break, but he failed to be troubled too much after Gaston Ramirez's free kick and a drive from half-time sub Rudy Gestede. But Palace showed their cutting edge when Wilfried Zaha went for goal from 30 yards out and saw the ball whiskered just over the crossbar. However, the host got a letter minutes later when Stuani was left unmarked in the box and was found by Adam Forcross's knockdown, but despite being well placed he could only hook a volley straight at Wayne Hennessy. And that warning proved that the host needed a cushion of a second goal, and they had a great chance to get that on 75 minutes when James McArthur went down in the area after he was pounced on by a miscontrol by Stuart Downing. But referee Bob Madley controversially booked the Scotsman for simulation rather than pointing to the spot. But as time ticked away, Palace remained resilient at the back and they could have even killed the game off in stoppage time when Andros Townsend blazed over after Benteke had counter-attacked another wave of Middlesbrough pressure. But the final whistle saw a tidal wave of relief wash over S1E37 as finally another home league success was claimed. Crystal Palace won a deserved 3 points with a performance that saw a Middlesbrough side dominated for much of the game. While Boro looked more combative in the second half, Palace saw the game out. Now for some positives from the game. Palace were excellent in the first half, thanks largely to the midfield that was impassive and creative too. At the back, the introduction of Mamadou Sakho brought a touch of quality and calmness to the defence. Now for some negatives from the game. Palace keep falling victim to poor refereeing decisions. Bobby Madley ignored a number of obvious fouls on Wilfried Zaha in the first half, and in the second half booked James McArthur for a dive when he should have awarded the penalty. It's fortunate that Palace weren't reliant on them poorly made decisions. It was described by Crystal Palace boss Sam Allardyce as a massive game for the Eagles, and they didn't disappoint against Middlesbrough. Patrick Van Aanholt netted the only goal of the game as the Eagles claimed just their third home win of the season in the Premier League to move level on points with their opponents and out of the relegation zone. But what did we learn from the game? Here are 5 things. Number 1. Together as one. There were pleas from Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish and the home staff fanatics before the game, and to be fair to the fans and the players, they responded well in the early stages. Palace were welcomed onto the pitch by a wall of noise from the Selhurst Park faithful, and they got behind the Eagles, who in turn started brightly and got at Boro from the start. Number 2, Van's the man. Crystal Palace needed someone to step up and make one of their chances count in the first half they completely dominated. Step forward Patrick Van Aanholt, who with his weaker right foot coolly slotted the ball into the bottom corner from the edge of the box to register his first goal for the club in just his 4th appearance. Number 3, no love lost for Patrick Bamford. Crystal Palace fans have posted on social media this week about not wanting former loanee Patrick Bamford to come back and haunt them. There was no chance of that as he wasn't even included in the matchday squad. And Palace fans were laughing at half time when a young Middlesbrough fan was told to channel your inner Bamford as he stepped up to take a penalty. Number 4, some much needed still. Crystal Palace chairman Steve Parish had said this week that the players needed to find some inner still, and that they did, with new signings Mamadou Sakho and Luka Milojevic providing some solidity down the spine of the team. It was not just those two though, as Palace put in a committed and determined display. And number 5, keeping it clean. Crystal Palace have not been known for their clean sheets this season, quite the opposite in fact. But they were lately comfortable here as they recorded just the 3rd clean sheet in the Premier League this season. More of the same, and this will give themselves a great chance of survival. So now you've had the match review, we're now going to move on to the player rankings. But before we start, don't forget to follow us across social media on Twitter and Facebook at Crystal Palace for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join in with the latest discussions, read the latest news and post your own opinion. So like I said there, if you're on social media and you do want to get in contact with us and follow us, then of course do follow us on both Twitter and Facebook, and you can find both of these pages using the @eCrystalPalace. And obviously I would highly recommend you do follow both of these pages because we do regularly update them with the latest news, and that is including player and manager interviews. So after the game, if you want to hear what fans had to say, what players had to say, and even what the chairman's had to say about the game or anything about the club, then of course do go on and follow us on Twitter and Facebook because we do post links to the articles there. And I think that's been quite popular lately on Twitter especially is the Twitter poll. So if you do want to vote in our Twitter polls, then obviously do give us a follow so that when we do post a poll you get a chance to vote for it. But obviously if you don't use Twitter you can obviously use Facebook, and if you are on Facebook obviously you can follow our main page. But if you are on Facebook, I personally would highly recommend the Facebook group, which I am an actual member of. Now you can find that using the @Crystal Palace group, and if you can't, you can probably just search it on Facebook and it'll probably come up. But the reason I recommend you do join this group is because after the game quite a lot of fans have gone on there to share their own opinion on how they thought the game went, on how they thought the players performed, or anything they saw throughout the game. And considering there was a few controversial penalty decisions in the game, there was a little bit of discussion on here, much like there was in many other Crystal Palace forums. But if there's anything else you would like to say about the game or anything else you know about the club that you want other fans to hear, then of course do join the Facebook group so you can post your opinion on there so other fans can see what you had to say, and obviously you can comment on that. Now obviously if you do, did go to the game, or you want to hear what others had to say, do of course post stuff on there. And a nice thing to see from other fans is to post pictures from you at the game. So the Homestead Fanatics actually put up quite a nice banner, a nice display against Middlesbrough. If you caught a picture of that, put it on the Facebook group so obviously other fans can see it if they weren't obviously able to go. But much like the main Twitter page or the main Facebook page and obviously the Twitter page, we do regularly update it with the latest news as well, links to quite a lot of articles and newspaper articles and interviews like that. So if you do want to keep up to date with all the latest news, obviously do go follow us on our main pages, but also join the Facebook group so you can obviously comment on them as well. And obviously if you can't find any of these social media pages by using the app, just go check any links in the description below. If you're listening on iTunes or on YouTube, all the links you would need are below, including one to our website which we're currently developing, and also to the other websites you can listen to the podcast. And obviously before I go on to give you the player rankings, if you are listening to the podcast on YouTube, then of course you can do feel free to drop a comment below the video on what you thought about the game and also who you thought the standout player was for Palace. And the only reason I want you to do this is so I can hear what you had to say, and quite a lot of people have done that in the past weeks, and it gives me an understanding about whether my opinion of the player's performance was very similar to other fans. And obviously in the last few weeks I've set a challenge to the listeners, and that was to list their player ratings. Now obviously I give you my player rankings, rating all of the players from 1 to 10, with obviously 1 being the worst and 10 being the best, and that's just sort of me summarising how I thought they performed throughout the game. So if this week, if you want to do the same like quite a lot of you have been doing over the last few weeks, then of course do drop below in the YouTube comments your player ratings, with the obviously you ranking the players, the starting 11 and the substitutes, just giving them ratings from 1 to 10 so I can see how you thought they performed throughout the game and what you thought about their performance, and I can compare it to mine to see whether you thought, you know, the players had the same sort of influence. Now obviously if you don't want to do this because you maybe not were able to see the game, or you didn't get to see all of the players perform throughout the game, then of course you can feel free to drop any comment about the game below. So like I said at the beginning, if you want to talk about the controversial penalty decision, whether you want to talk about your man of the match, whether you want to talk just about the game in general and how important it was, then of course do drop that below in the YouTube comments. And obviously I said about the man of the match, if you do want to listen on to the podcast towards the end, you'll hear my man of the match and who I thought obviously had the biggest influence in the game. But like I said at the beginning, if you do want to keep up to date with all things Palace, then of course do follow all of our social media accounts, which all the links you can find below. So now to move on to the goalkeeper, Wayne Hennessy, who I'm going to give a 6. Wasn't forced into action until the second half and made the saves that were needed. Still a little nervous on crosses and free kicks, but he deserved the clean sheet. So obviously Wayne Hennessy here, I've given him a 6, and there isn't really much to say about his game because it was a very average performance from him, because really not because he was performing under par, but purely because he wasn't tested by the Middlesbrough strikers that much throughout the game. And you know, especially in the first half, he didn't have to make a single save in the first half, which shows how poor that Middlesbrough were with their end product. But actually in the second half, you know, Middlesbrough kicked on a bit and they sort of got a bit more momentum as the game picked up, but obviously they still had limited chances, and the ones they did take, you know, notably Negredo's shot and the free kick, you know, notably them two things, you know, Wayne Hennessy was able to make the save and obviously keep us in the game. So, you know, on that front there isn't really much to say, because first half he had nothing to do, second half he had hardly anything to do, but he made 2 little simple saves that were needed and obviously kept us in the game. And obviously he was still a bit nervous on, you know, with free kicks, with some of the crosses trying to claim them, but that's understandable considering where the team are at the minute. But you know, he managed to ride through that, and obviously at the end of the game he managed to go on and keep the clean sheet, and that's the thing about him. I fully think he deserves the clean sheet. You know, it's only our 3rd clean sheet of the season, and obviously all 3 of them have come with him in goal, obviously the clean sheets in the league. So just showing that, you know, he's starting to get his confidence back in the fact that he got one against Bournemouth, he's now got one against Middlesbrough, and hopefully that confidence and the fact that the whole team performed so much better against Middlesbrough, hopefully that can, you know, help the team to push on this season. But you know, I've said this at the beginning, the only reason I've given him 6 where the other players I've given slightly higher ones is not because he had a worse game than all of them, it's purely because he didn't really have to do much in the game. He wasn't really tested by Middlesbrough, and that just shows once again how poor they were and maybe how good Palace were. But I think Middlesbrough made it easier for us to play better because obviously they were so much poorer than they've been in past weeks. But once again, Wayne Hennessy still a little bit nervous, and that's why you know, he's still a bit of a worry. But hopefully this clean sheet will give him a bit more confidence, and hopefully the fact that he didn't have to do anything and the fact that he made these little simple saves will hopefully help him to push on this season. Obviously moving on to the left back, Patrick Van Aanholt, who I'm going to give a 7. It's impressive just how much ground he covered, providing an option in attack and cover in defence. His goal, taken with his right foot, showed real quality. So obviously Patrick Van Aanholt here, I've given him a 7, and the main thing really to talk about is the brilliant goal he scored. So obviously you probably heard about it in the match report. Just to go over the goal, obviously the ball was chipped into the area, went to Cabaye. Cabaye had a shot and it got deflected right up into the air, sort of head tennis, and then Cabaye sort of controlled it. You know, they've given the assist to him, but I don't know why, because it's the slightest of touch. But you know, the ball came down obviously from it going up in the air. Cabaye managed to flick it on with the slightest touch to Van Aanholt. Van Aanholt took a touch with his left foot, moved the ball onto his right foot, took a lovely shot. And I say it's a shot, it looked more like a pass because the shot was so slow, but he slotted it, lovely curling effort, slotted it into the bottom right hand corner, and that showed real quality. And that's obviously with a new signing, you bring them to the club because you feel they will bring, you know, more quality to the side, and that goal proved what quality he brought to the side. The fact that he was able to control it with one foot, pass it onto the other foot, and obviously get a lovely curling effort into the bottom corner. And how important that goal is, I can't really highlight it enough. The fact that we got the clean sheet, and the fact that we scored the goal, the first goal, which is always the important goal, the fact that we done that was the thing that helped us to push on throughout the game. Because before the goal, we were playing really well. We were absolutely dominating Middlesbrough, putting crosses into the box. Benteke had a few headers towards goal. We had a few lovely bits of play where we managed to dribble into the area. But obviously, crucially, we didn't really take our chances. But when the chance came to Van Aanholt, he took it. Obviously, it meant that we got the goal, and obviously we carried on and built more confidence as the game went on. But obviously, yes, he scored the goal, but as the left back, got to do a good job defensively, and the fact that he kept a clean sheet is just credit to his defensive work. Because yes, he covered quite a lot of ground offensively, running down the left flank, linking up with the forwards, especially Zaha. I've personally thought they formed quite a good partnership, and that sort of partnership worked really well throughout the game. But the amount of ground he covered, whether it be him attacking, going forward, and obviously managing to get on the end of a ball to score a goal, or whether it be him covering back in defence because he's got the pace to keep up with the fast forwards, to keep up with them, make sure he can mark them. And obviously, when the ball came to him in the area, he was very cool and had to, when he had to clear it or pass it out, he done all of that calmly, and that just added to sort of the defensive performance we had. But once again, Patrick Van Aanholt, I'm going to put him, he is a nomination for the man of the match, so listen on to the end of the podcast where I give you my man of the match. But certainly, I think a 7 is fully deserved for him because, he scored the goal, which was crucial for Palace, the first goal, obviously the winning goal, as it was in the end. But, yes, it was good that he scored the goal, and he was good offensively, and obviously good with making that partnership with Zaha. But the main thing, really, he's kept a clean sheet as a left-back. And considering we've only kept 3 this season, 2 of them have been with him in the team, so certainly showing what a signing he's been. Before going to talk about the next player, the centre-back, I'm just going to give you a stat about Patrick Van Aanholt, which I've got from the Premier League website. And obviously it says that Patrick Van Aanholt has now scored 8 goals in the Premier League since the start of last season, a joint high for a defender with Scott Dann. So 2 Palace players there have got the most goals in the Premier League since the start of last season. So once again, that's showing that we've got very good defenders at the club. We've got offensive defenders who, when called upon, can score important goals. So once again, showing that, Van Aanholt, yes, he's got the defensive attributes and keeping a clean sheet, but he's also got the attacking attributes in the fact that he's able, to score goals. And that's just credit to him, really. At Sunderland, the last 2 seasons haven't really been, doing very well in the league, but they've just managed to survive. And obviously with Sam Allardyce last year, they just managed to survive. And Patrick Van Aanholt was crucial for them. So hopefully he can use that experience, that quality he's got to bring to the side. And considering when we brought him, he was the 2nd highest goal scorer at Sunderland. Hopefully he can bring them goals to us as well. And obviously, like I said before I gave you that stat, we're going to move on to the next centre-back, and that is obviously Mamadou Sakho, obviously on loan from Liverpool. I'm going to give an 8. Calm, focused and strong. He won a crucial header early in the first half, which otherwise would have seen Boro score. He then put a masterful defensive performance despite not being cleared, as he hasn't played competitively for almost a year. So obviously Mamadou Sakho here, I've given him an 8, and as you can see, it was a very, very fantastic performance from him on his Crystal Palace debut. And the 3 words I used to describe his performance were calm, focused and strong. Obviously him being calm on the ball when we were under pressure, when we had possession in our own half, he wouldn't sort of panic and pass it back to the goalkeeper or to the other centre-back. He'd try and dribble forward, make some yardage, then maybe put a cross into the area, maybe, put a pass to the other players in midfield, and he'd done that very well. Obviously he was focused because he knew what the job had to do. When players were on the attack for Middlesbrough, he was able to make a tackle, make blocks to stop them getting forward. And obviously being strong, he's got that very physical and sort of height presence he's got in the team. So when crosses came into the area, he put the headers away. He cleared all the danger for us. But I personally think these 3 words describe him very well. And obviously talking about him being strong, obviously he did win a header early in the first half, which is a very important header. We talked about how dominant Palace were in the first half, but yes, Middlesbrough still had 1 or 2 chances. On one of them, the ball was in the area, but Mamadou Sakho managed to get his head on it to clear it away. And obviously that was early in the first half. That could have gone in. It would have been 1-0 to Middlesbrough. It could have been a whole other game. But because, Sakho, he was focused, he remained calm, he was able to, get the ball away. And like I said, if it weren't for that header, maybe it would have seen Middlesbrough score. Obviously, there was another, it's not really a goal line clearance, but the ball was in the area from across from the Grado, I believe it was. The player went to have a shot on it from Middlesbrough, and Mamadou Sakho managed to get his toe on it to flick it away so we could clear it. So once again showing that when he was under pressure, he saw the ball was there, managed to get the slightest of touches, and you know, it may not have been a fantastic touch, but he managed to get enough on it to obviously clear it away. So once again showing that he's got the quality that, you know, to clear the danger that Palace had. And obviously another word really is a masterful defensive performance. It was everything you wanted from a defender. You know, he was fantastic, and you know, the reason he hasn't played, obviously he's been on loan for Palace since the January transfer window, so the deadline day, and he hasn't played the 2 or 3 games since that. But you know, this was his first game. He came into the side, and you'd presume because we've had a 2-week break because of the FA Cup action, you would expect all of the players to be more energetic, to have more fitness, and actually all of the players did. And you know, we weren't quite sure whether Mamadou Sakho, he would be quite fit because he hasn't really played for Palace or Liverpool in over a year, but he came into the side and he done very well. And you know, as I'm recording this, an article just came out saying with an interview with Mamadou Sakho saying that the reason he felt he had such a good performance for his first on his debut for Palace was the fact that he does his own personal training. So the fact that when he goes home from training when he was at Liverpool, yes, he done training with their under 23 side, but he also done his own sort of fitness regimes, and that's what's kept him up to scratch. And hopefully, you know, he isn't quite fully fit yet, and we saw that with a few of his touches on Saturday. But if this is how good he is when he isn't 100% fit, imagine what he will be like when he is 100% fit. And hopefully he's close to that level. And if he can perform like he did on Saturday every week, surely he'll be a vital person, a player to keeping us up this season. And obviously that's really the performance, you know. Very solid performance from him. He kept a clean sheet on his debut. That's what you want from a defender. The aim is to keep clean sheets and put in a solid performance. Sakho done both of them, and considering, like I said, he hasn't been fit all season, it was very good. And obviously, much like Van Aanholt, I've got some stats here for Mamadou Sakho, and this is his debut in numbers. So these are sort of statistics around his first game for Palace. So the first one is tackles won. He won 100% of his tackles. And I talked about how he was ball playing. He had 92% pass accuracy. Obviously, talk about how strong and how focused he was. He had 6 clearances. Talking about how strong he was, he had 3 aerial duels won, and obviously the crucial one for a defender, he had 1 clean sheet. So actually looking at them stats, 100% tackles won, 92% pass accuracy, that is actually a really good debut for a centre back. And you know, I'll go on to talk about in a minute what he's been awarded, but certainly if he can perform like this every week by, you know, winning all the tackles he goes into, making sure he's not losing possession in his own half, if he can carry on doing these things, hopefully he could be a massive asset to Palace this season. And obviously the thing I was going to talk about now, what he's been rewarded, it's actually been 2 players that have been rewarded this award. And you've probably guessed already, it is the Premier League Team of the Week. And this is not the official one, this is not the FIFA one. This is actually the ESPN FC one. So obviously this was doing the rounds on Twitter just as I was recording this video. So I thought I'd just put it in the podcast so obviously you can hear. But the 2 players that have been in the Premier League Team of the Week for this weekend are obviously 2 of the players I've already talked about. So one of them is obviously the left back Patrick Van Aanholt, and obviously Mamadou Sakho. So it doesn't much like, you know, when you go on whoscored.com, they give them ratings, but on the ESPN Team of the Week, they don't give you ratings, they just list all of the players. And the fact that, you know, Van Aanholt, Sakho, they're in the Team of the Week with the likes of Hazard, Costa, Harry Kane, Fabregas, all of these really top quality players in the Premier League. The fact that they've made it into that group for this weekend just shows and highlights once again how good their performance was. And the other thing really to talk about, you know, what ESPN do with their Team of the Week, they actually nominate a manager for the Team of the Week. And this week, obviously, we've got a win, we've got a clean sheet, we've got a win that keeps us out of the relegation zone. Of course, it's going to go to Sam Allardyce. So obviously, we've got the 2 players in the Team of the Week, but also the manager, Sam Allardyce, has been able to get in there as well. But once again, you know, a very solid performance from both of these players. Obviously, both of them being new signings, and hopefully, with them having such a good impact, they've made it into the Premier League Team of the Week. Hopefully with new confidence, with winning a game, hopefully that can help us to push on this season and hopefully get out of the relegation fight, because we, you know, this win took us out of it, and albeit by 1 point, and albeit we're only 1 place below Middlesbrough, only on goal difference, you know, hopefully that confidence will build up in the next few weeks and obviously help us to get more results. Now to move on to Mamadou Sakho's centre-back partner, James Tompkins, who I'm going to give a 7. Deserves much credit for the clean sheet. took care of Negredo confidently and handled the physical presence of Rudiger Stead too. So obviously James Tomkins here, I've given him a 7 because much like Mamadou Sakho, it was a very solid and very physical performance from him. And I've talked about this with the whole team, but I think the whole team really deserves, you know, credit for the clean sheet, but much do all of the defence, because at the end of the day, the defence is the one trying to make sure that the other team don't score goals, and James Tomkins done that very well. And obviously I'm not going to go into too much detail like I did with Mamadou Sakho, giving you the stats, because I think Mamadou Sakho played fantastically, and, you know, James Tomkins done the job he had to do, but he done it very well. And obviously the main people he had to deal with was Negredo, yes, Middlesbrough haven't really scored that many goals this season, but quite a lot of them have come from Negredo. He's been their most attacking threat, so the fact that we kept him quiet, and that was mainly thanks to James Tomkins, is a good thing. And also the physical presence of Rudiger Stead. So that's one of Middlesbrough's new signings, but, you know, James Tomkins made sure he kept his physical presence and his sort of influence in the game to a minimum. But there isn't really much more to talk about Tomkins, in the fact that he's normally, since his time at Palace, in my opinion, I think he's been quite reliable. Where we've seen dips in form for the likes of Ward, Dan Delaney, you know, whenever James Tomkins has played, yes, he may not have always been fantastic and brilliant, but, you know, he's always been one of these sort of players that always, yeah, he does a sort of average performance every game. And this game, yes, he done more than average, but it was a very decent performance from him, and that's why he deserves a 7. But do comment below whether you think he deserves it, and how much influence or how much credit you're going to give the defence for the clean sheet, or whether you think it was a whole sort of team effort, and the fact that the 2 weeks we had off because of the FA Cup, whether that helped us to rebuild the team and obviously prepare more for this game. But certainly a good performance from him. Obviously moving on now to the last player in the defence, and that is the right back, Joe Ward, who I'm going to give a 7. Doesn't have the pace of Van Aanholt, but his application was excellent throughout, defending and creating in equal measure. So obviously Joe Ward here, I've said it already, all the defence played well, but Joe Ward done maybe better than the likes of Tomkins. And, you know, I do compare him to Van Aanholt in this game, because, you know, they're both fullbacks, they both were told and instructed to push forward, to try and create opportunities, and they both did that. You know, his application was fantastic, and, you know, in the last few games he's got a bit lost. He hasn't been marking players close enough, he hasn't been blocking crosses, he hasn't been going forward. But in this game he had his mindset right, and whether that be because of the training he's done, whatever it was he's been doing, he was right on the ball in this game, and he was excellent throughout. So whether that be his defending, the fact that he was actually making tackles this week, whereas the last few weeks he hasn't really been doing it, the fact that he was blocking crosses, all of these things he done very well, which he hasn't been doing or has been lacking in the last few weeks. But much like Van Aanholt, and the reason I compared him to Van Aanholt, not just because of his defensive work throughout the game as a forward, but also, you know, his attacking threat. So we know that Joe Ward, yes, he's had some good games this season from an attacking perspective, but recently he hasn't been good defensively or offensively. But in this game he got the balance right, and he was very good offensively. And, you know, there's a few crosses I can, you know, remember where he got the ball on the right flank and put lovely crosses, lovely curling efforts into Benteke for Benteke to control in his chest and try and have a shot. So the fact that he's not only being good defensively, but the fact that he's come back into the side with more confidence, and the fact that he's, you know, getting balls into Benteke, which is what Benteke wants, is, you know, another thing to credit him for. But certainly I've given him a 7 because, much like Van Aanholt, he'd done a role on that fullback role, you know, going forward when he had to, going back when he, you know, when he had to defend. But certainly a good performance from him. But before I go on to talk about the midfield, well, I'm going to start with the defensive midfield, but, you know, I've got to credit Joe Ward because, you know, when we lost the game against Sunderland, he was one of the last players to go off the pitch. He was going around the, you know, the stands, or going around the edge of the pitch, clapping the fans for obviously their support. You know, the game against Stoke last weekend, or 2 weekends ago, he went around the whole pitch, you know, or went round to the away end, was clapping the fans. And this week, once again, he was the last player to leave the pitch because he was doing his round around the stadium, clapping all the fans. So, you know, his dedication, you've got to say, he truly does love the club, in the fact that he's got the dedication to, when all the players have gone in, he's gone around the whole the whole stadium and clapped all the fans. And for that, you know, we do as fans really enjoy that, and we do appreciate that, the fact that you've come over to us and thanked us for our support. And if all of the players start doing that, will help to build up the reunion, the sort of the sort of friendship, let's say, relationship between the fans and the players, because it hasn't been, with our results not being good lately, it hasn't really been that strong. But the fact that Joe Ward trying to build up the relationship with the fans again, and try and, you know, get the fan going, and the fact that he's shown his appreciation for the fans, for their support, but also the fact that we're showing our support for him. I think that's working really well, and hopefully with us fans, supporting the team more, and the fact that players like Joe Ward, thanking us fans for supporting them, hopefully that can help the whole team and the whole sort of fan base to grow in confidence in the next few weeks. And I've heard this in interviews, hopefully the support from the supporters and obviously the players having more confidence, hopefully that can help us to get a result against West Brom. But certainly good game from Joe Ward, a 7 from him for a very good defensive and offensive performance, but also he's going to be given this rating for obviously his dedication after the game. Obviously I talked about at the beginning, we're going to move on now to the defensive midfielder, starting with Luka Milojevic, who I'm going to give an 8. The defensive midfielder led the team that was the leader that Palace needed since the start of the season, faultless for most of the game. So obviously, before I start with his name, by talking about Luka, I do apologise if I said his name wrong, but it is quite a hard name, and I know quite a lot of fans have started to learn it, and so far I believe it's Milojevic, but do correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section on YouTube. But certainly it was a fantastic performance from him, much like Mamadou Sakho, one of our new signings, performing very well, and he was one of the standout players against Stoke, and I personally voted him for the Man of Match award. But once again, it was a very solid performance from him, and that's why I've given him an 8. Now we were all quite distraught when Jedinak left the club in at the end of the summer transfer window to go to Aston Villa, because we were losing the leader, we were losing the rock that we had in the defence, and ever since Jedinak's gone, we haven't been the same defensively. We haven't had that protection from the midfield, we haven't had that leader inside of middle of the field, and we've been missing that since the start of the season. That's why we've started to drop down the table, is because we haven't had that leader, making sure the team know what they're doing, but also someone who's got to give cover to the back line. But in this game, Luka Milojevic, he was a perfect replacement for Jedinak, and that's what when I wrote up my match report for Reed Crystal Palace, I actually wrote that Luka, he was compared by some fans, including myself, to a younger Jedinak, because let's bear in mind, based on this performance, from what we've seen, he's like Jedinak because he's very good defensively, he's got that leadership, but he's almost better than Jedinak already from what we've seen, because he can actually pass the ball and he's got a fantastic passing range. And that's what we need from the game. Yes, we need someone who can do a Jedinak role, and the fact that they could lead the team, and the fact that they can do a job defensively and give protection to the back four, but also the fact that he was able to have that passing ability, to get the ball forward, to do lovely cross-field passes. All of that helps us set up our attacks, and actually it led to us dominating quite a lot throughout the game. The fact that we could get the balls to our wingers quick and set up counter-attacks quite quickly. And I'd said he was faultless for most of the faultless for most of the game. He didn't make any mistakes throughout the game. His passing, his touch was fantastic. The ball got whipped up in the air to him, one touch, controlled the ball, passed it out wide. So that sort of control he's got on the game was fantastic, and I don't think he made any mistakes from the game. And much like Sakho, it was a very solid game from him. And obviously with him playing quite deep, because he is, a very, very defensive-minded midfielder, that meant that the likes of Joe Ward, Patrick Van Aanholt got forward, and obviously that meant that Joe Ward and obviously Patrick Van Aanholt had lots of offensive chances to score. And because Luka was given protection to the back four, it was almost like we were playing with a back three at times, because the fullbacks were pushing up so high to try and attack the ball, and obviously Luka was doing that defensive role. But certainly, it was a very good defensive game from him. I can't, it's a bit early to judge him, because obviously he's only just come to English football, and yes, he's had 1 or 2 good games, but that form may dip. But based on this and the fact that what we've seen on YouTube of what he'd done at Olympiacos, if he can carry on being this good, doing his defensive work, being a leader, having his passing ability, he'll be a fantastic signing for us, much like Van Aanholt, much like Sakho. If these players keep continuing to perform to this standard every week in, week out, and try to give us that solidity which we've been missing since the start of the season, hopefully that can help us to push on this season. But certainly an 8 from him, a real contender for the Man of the Match award, but certainly another good game from him. But before I go on to talk about the midfield, the attacking midfield of Johan Cabaye and Jason Puncheon, I'm just going to give you a little clip of how to say Luka's name.
I am Luka Milojevic. You can call me Luka.
So like I said before, I gave you that little clip of how to say Luka's name. We're now going to move on to the midfield three, who in my opinion were the attacking midfielders throughout the game, of Johan Cabaye and Jason Puncheon. Obviously starting off with Johan Cabaye, who I'm going to give a 7. A resolute performance from the Frenchman. Crisp passing, strong tackling and persistent harrying all helped Palace to win. So obviously Yohan Cabaye here, I've given him a 7 because once again it was a very good performance from him. Now obviously there was quite a lot of fans speculating before the game about how Palace would line up, and actually there was quite a lot of surprise when it came to the midfield. So obviously most people put Luka in there because he impressed against Stoke. Most people put Cabaye in there because although he was, he got dropped a few games before, he got injured at the Sunderland game, couldn't start against Stoke. There was a lot of debate about who would start, and in my personal opinion I thought that Yohan Cabaye was going to start with Luka obviously, and then maybe play McArthur, but actually there was a complete change of the midfield. But actually, even though there was that change to the midfield, they had that 2 weeks training period to work on it, and actually I think the midfield three of Luka, Cabaye and Puncheon actually worked quite well throughout the game. And like I said at the beginning, obviously it was mainly Luka playing very defensive, which meant that he was almost as a first centre back, allowing the two fullbacks to push forward. Obviously Yohan Cabaye, Jason Puncheon were both very attacking midfielders, trying to create chances from the team. But the one word really to describe Yohan Cabaye's performance in that sort of midfield three was resolute, because it was really a good performance from him. He didn't make hardly any mistakes, made tackles to stop to stop attacks. He went forward, tried to get passes in, tried to get crosses in to supply the attackers, and it was an all-round good performance. And yes, he got booked and he got taken off in the second half, but actually sometimes you've got to take a tackle for the team. He's known for making these tackles, but actually yes, you get booked for these tackles, but actually they're a tackle that might stop an attack, might stop a counter-attack, which means that you get to defend the set piece rather than having to defend one-on-one. So actually sometimes that yellow card, that foul can be a good thing. And I think although he got booked, it didn't affect his performance because he put in an absolutely solid performance. And like I say quite a lot most weeks, sometimes you've got to take a tackle for the team, and obviously Cabaye done that. Now the thing I really liked about his game, obviously we know he was good at passing. His passing was crisp throughout the game. I talked about, yes, he is playing quite offensive, quite attacking, linking up with Puncheon. When he had to go back and defend with Luka, he was very strong at tackling. And also, because McArthur was dropped to the side, we had to try and still be able to apply pressure, and we've done that very well. Yohan Cabaye, he was constantly, persistently is the word I like to use, harrying the Middlesbrough midfield, pressing them to make sure they would have no time to pass, make sure they could try and make a mistake to try and get them forward. So actually Yohan Cabaye, he done a pretty good job at doing that, and considering McArthur was dropped to the bench, he's still done a pretty good job of doing what McArthur would normally do. And all of that, his passing, his tackling, that sort of pressure, all of that put together helped us to win the game, because if it wasn't for his defensive and offensive performance, there may have been a bit more space in the midfield or the centre of the park for Middlesbrough, and maybe they could have easily got back into the game. But certainly Yohan Cabaye's contribution, very good contribution to the team, like I said, both defensively and offensively, and fully deserves the 7. And I must say now, he is also one of the nominations for the man of the match. Obviously moving on now to Jason Puncheon, obviously the fellow attacking partner to Yohan Cabaye, who I'm going to give a 7. Part of an excellent midfield performance, the captain's armband appeared to give him a boost. So obviously Jason Puncheon here, it was a very, very similar performance to Yohan Cabaye, so I'm not really going to talk too much about it. His passing, his tackling was good, and obviously he was good at harrying the players. And although his performance did drop in the second half slightly, his overall performance, especially his first half performance, was very good. But the first thing I must congratulate him, so congratulations Jason, is that you got the captain's armband, the first time you've captained the team for Palace. And actually it was a very good debut, let's say, of captaining the side, because obviously you kept a clean sheet, we got the win, and also you led the team quite well. And obviously we've got the leadership of Luka in the team, but the fact that we've got a local boy in Puncheon who's played at the club for many years, and the fact that he's been out of form recently, that sort of pride and that sort of leadership of leading the team out helped to improve his performance. And certainly I myself was quite worried before the game, thinking Puncheon isn't really a leader from the team, he hasn't really been performing well, so maybe that's another burden on his shoulders. But actually I think he took it in his stride, because he went out there with loads of pride for wearing the armband, and obviously put in another fantastic performance. The midfield was probably the best part of the team. Puncheon, Cabaye, Milivojevic, he was part of that excellent midfield, and he helped to make it good. And I've said this already, very, very similar performance to Cabaye in the fact that he was passing, tackling, and obviously trying to put pressure on the team. And although his performance did drop in the second half, it was still a very good performance from him, and obviously that's why I've given him a 7. But I once again must congratulate the local boy on obviously getting the armband, and I do take back my criticism of it before the game, because I thought you would probably be a weak leader. But, you know, you proved us wrong, and hopefully that leadership skills you've got, that sort of increase in form, can hopefully, you know, help you to improve in the next few games. And I must say that although, you know, I had my doubts before the game, having seen his sort of downward spiral in form of recent weeks, I actually predicted in the sort of summer review, the sort of pre-season review I done with my mate Christopher, you know, I asked him, and I discussed it with him before I actually recorded the podcast, who I personally thought would be sort of the captain. And obviously we knew at that point that Scott Down had been appointed the captain, but no one knew whether Damien Delaney would be the vice captain or whether Punchin would be. But, you know, I predicted Punchin, because I said, you know, Punchin, much like you've got in rugby, you've got a forwards and you've got a backs captain. He was the forwards captain for Palace. You know, he was making sure that the forward players knew what they had to do. And I personally thought, you know, he's a Palace boy. You know, he's played for the club for many years. Why don't you give him the captaincy? And obviously, he hasn't really been performing that well this season. But when he did get the opportunity, which I predicted, he took it in his stride. So hopefully that can be, you know, that can sort of, yeah, that can hopefully lead to more things to happen in the future. Hopefully, with him being given the captain's armband, and that sort of pride can hopefully to improve his performance. But certainly, a 7's a fair result from him. And do comment below whether you think it was the right decision to captain him, and whether you do think he deserves the 7. Obviously, moving on now to the front three, in my opinion, you know, I believe that's the formation. We were sort of playing a 4-3-3 or maybe a 4-1-4-1. But let's just say the front three, obviously, 2 wingers and your striker. You've got Wilfried Zaha on the left wing, actually, linking up well with Van Aanholt. Andros Townsend on the right wing, and obviously Christian Benteke up front. So starting off with Wilfried Zaha, who I'm going to give an 8. A constant threat. Could arguably have won a penalty in the first half. Starting to develop an understanding with Van Aanholt too. So obviously, Wilfried Zaha, I've given him an 8 because once again it was a fantastic performance from him. And like we know, and like what we've seen from Zaha this season, he was a constant threat. Whether he's playing on the left, whether he's playing on the right, whenever he has the ball at his feet, he uses his pace, he uses his skill, and he uses his strength as well to try and get past players. And once again in this game, he was a constant threat, battling with Middlesbrough, putting Middlesbrough under so much pressure. And obviously, you know, he could have had a few chances to score as well. And obviously, there's a lot of debate about the refereeing decisions. I'm not really going to dwell on it too much because we won the game. But, you know, we could have won 1 or 2 penalties. The one in the first half, Zaha's gone, using his pace to run into the box. He gets pushed in the back. And there was a very, very similar penalty given in the I believe it was the Watford-West Ham game this weekend. A very, very similar penalty. The player was pushed down whilst he was running into the box. Some may say that that was a shove, that was good defending, but that was given as a penalty. So if that one's sort of penalty material, then of course the one with Zaha in the first half getting pushed down, that's a penalty as well. But, you know, I'm not really going to dwell too much on that. But once again, consistency with refereeing. If you're going to give one of them one in one game, you've got to give another one in the other game, because obviously he clearly pushed him down. But obviously with Zaha being a constant threat, you know, he's got to build a good partnership with other players around him. I talked about this at the beginning. He formed a very, very good partnership with Van Aanholt. And obviously they've had a few weeks now. This is Van Aanholt's 4th game for Palace. And obviously he's probably had about a month, maybe a month and a half to sort of gel with the team now. And I personally think Wilfried Zaha formed a very good partnership with Van Aanholt. Obviously, we know that this season Zaha's been pretty good at tracking back and defending. And obviously, he's been outstanding going forward. But Van Aanholt's done exactly the same. Van Aanholt's obviously a defensive version of Zaha. Obviously, he's very good defensively, doing defensive work. But when he goes forward, he's fantastic as well. And I think that sort of that linking up with pace, the fact that they can do 1-2s with each other and know that they're going to get on the end of the other ball because they've got the pace to catch up with it. That sort of understanding with each other meant that they had that, you know, that understanding, that connection with each other. And there was a few 1-2s in the game where Zaha passed it to Van Aanholt, back and forth. Zaha or Van Aanholt got across into the area, and obviously we almost scored from them. So once again, showing that when players link up well together, they can create chances. And certainly I can see this developing into an even better sort of partnership throughout the season, because yes, we know Zaha's much, much better on the right hand side, but when he plays on the left like he showed in this game, he can still do a performance. And if he carries on with this good partnership with Van Aanholt, and if Andros Townsend continues to be much better playing on the right hand side, I don't see any problem with Zaha playing there, because it's only going to get better as the season progresses. But hopefully he'll be a main crucial player to obviously keep Palace up this season, because his attacking threat was once again fantastic. Obviously moving on now to the striker Christian Benteke, who I'm going to give a 7. A more energetic performance. We've been disappointed with the 2 headers opportunities he had, but wish he would have scored. But wish he had scored. So obviously Christian Benteke here, I've given him a 7 because once again, much like the whole team, it was a very good performance from him. And obviously he's come up for quite a lot of criticism of late. Some people calling him lazy because he doesn't really run a lot. He waits for the ball to get crossed into him. But in this game, it was a much more energetic performance from him. You know, he was trying to run on the end of balls. He was trying to run into the area to get on the end of crosses. He was trying to get more involved in the play. So trying to get passes from close or try to get crosses from much closer so he can chest them down, try and spin the defender and shoot. So he had a much more overall energetic performance, and that resulted in him having a lot more opportunities from the game, and actually a lot more fans, you know, praising him for the fact that he's trying to get more involved than he has been in past games. Now, although he was good at doing that, the fact that he got the ball to him much more than he has done in past games, the fact that he had a lot more shots and headers than he had in the last few games, he still would have been a little bit, you know, disappointed with the fact that there was 2 headers he had, one of which was, you know, Van Aanholt put across into the area. He headed it straight at Valdez, I believe, who was in goal. Another one, another cross came in, he could have headed that in, but at the end of the day, there wasn't quite enough power on the ball, in my opinion, that he had to get too much power on the header that he couldn't really, you know, generate that much power to score. But certainly, you know, if he had scored them 2 headers, let's say he scored the 2 headers, it could have been maybe 3-0, but certainly a good performance from him, much more energetic one with him running off the ball, trying to get in the end of crosses. But certainly he has the willingness to score. You know, there was a little thing at the end of the game where apparently he had an argument with Townsend, because Townsend, right in the last minute, instead of passing the ball with a little chip pass to Benteke to score an open goal, he decided to shoot and he put it in the side net. Apparently they had a little bit of argument, but I personally, even if they had an argument, I see that as a good thing, because it shows that, yes, Townsend's eager to get goals, because the fact that he, you know, he may be a bit greedy, but he's eager to get goals. The fact that he shot, and the fact that Benteke got angry, is the fact that it shows that how much he cares. The fact that he cares about the team, with the fact that he wants to score goals, and that's the thing I take from it. The fact that Benteke wants to score goals, and the fact that he gets quite emotional about it, is obviously a good thing for Palace. And hopefully, in the next few games, if we get a chance like that again, Andros Townsend will make the decision to obviously pass the ball and then score an easy goal. But certainly a 7 for Benteke, a very good performance from him, and I must say a much more energetic one than normal. Obviously moving on now to the last player of our starting 11, and that is Andros Townsend playing on the right wing, who I'm going to give a 7. His best performance from Palace since signing, and a real threat in attack and defensively focused too. So obviously Andros Townsend here, much like Zaha, he was a constant threat down the left, or whether it be on the left or the right, he was a constant threat, you know, down the wing. And obviously I talked about that. He's obviously one of these wingers who likes to attack the ball, likes to run straight, likes to cut inside and have shots. In this game he'd done that, and obviously that's why he was such a good threat, a threat going offensively. But to be honest, I've seen this on social media. Quite a lot of fans have said that this is probably his best performance since signing for Palace, other than the game he scored a goal. And I certainly think that, because, you know, since he's joined Palace, he had maybe 1 or 2 good games, and he hasn't really been performing well because, you know, he wasn't really fitting into Pardew's formations or the way Pardew wanted to play, and because Pardew refused to play him on the right. But now we've seen him playing on the right, his performances have increased and become better, and obviously this game, it was probably his best performance from Palace. You know, he was getting crosses into the area, trying to have runs in the area, trying to have shots. All of this stuff from an attacking perspective was fantastic, but we must not forget, you know, the defensive work he done. Yes, he was going forward, getting crosses in, but also, much like Zaha, he was going back, defending, making sure that we could cope with the pressure from Middlesbrough, and on a few occasions he set up counter-attacks from which we went on to try and create opportunities. So once again, showing how much of an influence he has from in the game. But certainly, I think a 7's a fair result from him. Isn't really much more to say, because much like Zaha, the main thing for a winger is to be a threat, and obviously he was. Obviously moving on now to these substitutes, do comment below before I give you the substitutes, whether you agree with any of these starting 11 ratings I've given, and obviously these substitute ones, just so, like I said at the beginning, just to give me an idea of whether you do agree with my opinion, because I do like to hear what other fans have to say. But I certainly think, having seen how many views my article's got and how many comments on the article I wrote for Read Crystal Palace, and I will drop a link below the video with a link to obviously the video to the article, but certainly I think they're quite fair. But do comment below with your opinion and obviously who you think the man of the match was. But obviously the 3 substitutions for Crystal Palace were James Sakho, Jeffrey Schlupp and Scott Dann. And obviously Jeffrey Schlupp and Scott Dann, they came on quite late in the game, so I'm not really going to give them a rating. You know, Jeffrey Schlupp came on for Van Aanholt when, you know, Van Aanholt had to go off injured. You know, it wasn't a serious injury, but we don't want to risk any muscular injuries because they could be maybe a few weeks out. And you know, Jeffrey Schlupp came on for Van Aanholt, you know, did the job well. And obviously with Schlupp and Scott Dann coming on at the same time, it meant that we changed the formation to a 3-5-2, maybe a 3-6-1, but whatever the formation was, we were playing 3 at the back just to sort of give us a little bit of solidity for the end of the game. And it worked quite well, to be honest. You know, Jeffrey Schlupp playing that wing-back role with Joe Ward, with also, you know, Scott Dann playing at the back. And that was just to make sure that none of our players would get injured. The fact that we took off Van Aanholt as a precaution, and the fact that we also, you know, brung, you know, Scott Dann on just to give us a little bit more solidity in the last few minutes of the game. But, you know, it was a, you know, they were decent substitutes because they'd done what they had to do. They kept the solidity of the team. And, you know, in the last sort of few minutes of the game, you know, Middlesbrough started to up the intensity, you know, putting long balls up to Gusted. But because, you know, Dan was brought on, he shored that up, and obviously he did a good job with that. But James McArthur, he had a little bit more influence in the game because obviously he was on the pitch for much longer than these 2 players. And I'm going to give him a 7, you know. He was replaced for Yohan Cabaye, like I said, because Cabaye got booked, and you know, you don't want to risk him getting lost because you know, he had so much influence in this game. He was just brought on to give a little bit more injection of energy, you know, with his sort of pace. He's got that sort of constant stamina. He's got the fact that he can press players down. He was only brought onto the pitch to do that, and he done very well. And then once again, another controversial penalty decision. You know, the Middlesbrough defenders, you know, flopped his touch. He's let the ball, you know, go in front of him. McArthur's gone to intercept the ball back, and as he's done that, the Middlesbrough player stepped on his toe. Obviously, McArthur's then fallen over, and the referee's booked McArthur for diving, even though he stepped on his toe whilst he was running, so of course he would fall over. You know, I don't understand why that's a dive. That's a definite penalty. I know loads of, you know, commentators have said that's a definite penalty, and even Alan Shearer, who absolutely hates Palace, even he said it on Match of the Day that that was a clear penalty. So once again, showing that, you know, once again, a bad performance from the referee. But certainly, if he had been given and awarded that penalty, he would have made it 2-0, would have probably killed the game dead. But certainly we need to cut out this inconsistency with refereeing in the game, because it wasn't even like he touched him a little bit and he fell over. He actually stepped on his foot and he fell over his, you know, he fell over the foot when he was running. So that's a definite penalty. Everyone in the stadium saw it. I've seen it on the replays. I've seen the photos. So I don't really understand why that wasn't given. But they're all the substitutes. Do comment below whether you think, what you think about them, and whether you do think, you know, Jeffrey Schlupp does deserve a rating. I personally don't think he does. Well, he does deserve a rating, but because he wasn't on the pitch long enough, I'm not really going to give them any ratings. Same goes with Scott Dann. But just to sort of summarise the game, you know, the first half was the best game I personally have seen at Selhurst Park in a long time. Obviously, you know, we've had some good games there in this season. You know, the one against Stoke is the one that's quite notable. The one against Southampton as well. But certainly one of the best first halves we've seen in Palace in a long time. The fact that we dominated the team so much. And although, you know, the second half we were less dominant, you know, that because Middlesbrough were putting on more pressure, we were still quite firm. We held that solidity and we tried to sort of match that increased intensity. And I personally think because the midfield was more impassive and creative, it meant that we could deal with that threat as well. And obviously, talking about, I'm just going to mention Sam Allardyce a bit, because, you know, he came out before the game and said that the players are not really listening to him. You know, he wants to play his way of football, you know, his formations, his style. And apparently the players have not been, they've been sort of denying that and not really wanting to play that. But in this game, the tactics were exactly what was required. All of the players went with the game plan. And obviously, once again, relating back to the 2-week break, that 2-week break doing training has done them well, because it meant that Sam Allardyce could implement his plan and his tactics, and obviously it worked in this game. And what that sort of meant, that it was was that Sam Allardyce brought the organisation back into the team, made sure all the players knew what they were doing, brought the intent, so the attacking intent, with the fact that the teams want to attack, want to get forward. And obviously at the back, you know, Mamadou Sakho was brought into the side. Obviously he's integrated into the team during that 2-week period. He brought a little bit of quality to the side, which we've been missing in defence this season, and also a bit of calmness. So the fact that he hasn't played a game for Palace means that he probably hasn't lost any confidence like the likes of Delaney and Dan. So he's come into the game fresh, and obviously he used that calmness to our advantage. But once again, a good game, a very dominant game from Palace against Middlesbrough. But I must say, a very crucial game in the fact that that 3 points got us out of the relegation zone, and obviously we are level on points with Middlesbrough, but only on goal difference with below them. So hopefully against West Brom next week, if we can get a draw, that would be fantastic, and hopefully that can help us to push on this season. So now to move on to the man of match award. But before I do that and give you my man of match, and who I thought had the biggest influence in the game, I'm now going to give you the results of my Twitter poll. So obviously if you do want to vote in next week's Twitter poll and have your opinion heard on who you thought the best player was, and obviously the player with the biggest influence, then of course do go on to my Twitter account, which you can find using the @CPC podcast. Do go on there, do give me a follow, so you can obviously vote in next week's man on the match poll. But the 4 nominations I had for this week's man of match, obviously for the game against Middlesbrough, were Patrick Van Aanholt, Mamadou Sakho, Luka Milivojevic and Yohan Cabaye. So just to go through the 4 nominations and why I've put them on the shortlist. Obviously Van Aanholt, he covered quite a lot of ground defensively and offensively, running up and down the left hand side, and also he scored the great goal with his weak foot. Lovely touch to get the ball, or a lovely touch with his left foot to pass it onto his right foot. Lovely curling effort into the bottom corner. Same goes with Sakho. Sakho had a very good defensive performance. You know, it was a masterful defensive performance from him. Didn't do much wrong. You know, he was calm on the ball. He was focused, knew what he had to do. And obviously he was very strong, you know, winning headers all over the place. And obviously moving on to Luka Milivojevic, you know, he was a leader that Palace had been missing since the start of the season. You know, he led the team in the middle of the park well. He gave a lot of protection very well to the back 4, obviously giving them protection, and because he was playing so deep at times, it meant that the fullbacks could push forward. You know, I believe he was faultless for most of the game, didn't make any mistakes whatsoever, and if he did, they were minimal. And the one thing really I really liked about his game was his touch. His touch was absolutely fantastic. You know, killed the ball dead, then passed it out wide. So that's once again showing that why he's, obviously we're comparing him to a younger Jednak, because he can pass the ball, but the fact, because he's very good defensively, but because he can pass the ball, that's what makes him even better than him. And obviously Yohan Cabaye, you know, we know, I've talked about him already, but his passing was crisp. He was very strong tackling, and obviously much like MacArthur does every week in, week out, he tried to put pressure on the opposition by harrying them around, and obviously all of that did result in us trying to get the win. And obviously I'm just going to go through the results. Obviously that's why I've put them on the list, but starting in last place with 6% of the votes was Yohan Cabaye. Closely followed up with 18% of the votes. In 3rd place is Patrick Van Aanholt, and for the first time ever on the podcast, there's no 2nd place, because it's a joint 1st place you know, winner of the man of match poll between Mamadou Sakho and Luka Milivojevic with 38% of the vote. So congratulations Luka and Mamadou Sakho. You don't get a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was a very, very fantastic performance from you defensively. You know, you were fantastic, you were calm, you done what you had to do, and obviously you helped us to get the clean sheet off only our 3rd clean sheet of the season. So once again, showing how crucial it was. But certainly, as you can see there, the majority of people thought that them 2 players were fantastic, and I personally have to agree with them, because their defensive influence on the game was fantastic. And obviously, as you may have noticed, there's a few players that missed out, and the only reason I only put 4 nominations there is because on the Twitter poll you can only put a maximum of 4 players. You know, if I could put the whole 11 there and you get to vote on which of the 11 players you thought the best, I would do that. But you know, the likes of Andros Townsend, Wilfried Zaha, they missed out, and that's not because, you know, their performance was any worse than these 2. It's just because there's only 4 nomination spots, like I said, and obviously these guys I thought had a little bit more influence than them, you know, them 4 players. But certainly a good performance from all of these, and it's pretty hard for me. You know, I am going to go with the Twitter poll, but it's about who I do go with. But to be honest, considering all the stats I gave you, as you probably heard when I read about Mamadou Sakho, I am going to give it to Mamadou Sakho. So congratulations, Mamadou. You do get my sincere congratulations on what was a very solid performance from you defensively. But the only reason I'm going to give it to Mamadou rather than Luka is because look at them stats, the fact that he won 100% of his tackles, the fact that he was passing the ball well, that's why I'm going to give it to him. Because, yes, he was good defensively, but everything else he done through the game was fantastic. And that's not to say that any of the players, weren't performing good. But I thought Sakho, on his debut for the club, considering he hasn't played in over a year, it was a very solid performance from him. So now you've heard my match report, player rankings and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Sam Allardyce, Patrick Van Aanholt, Mamadou Sakho and Jason Puncheon following the game.
Patrick, a winning goal for you today, great moment.
Yeah, unbelievable moment for me, for myself and for the teammates and for the club. Massive 3 points.
Yeah, and a great team defensive performance as well.
Yeah, very good. I think first half we were dominant. We came out like we needed to win this game, and I think we created loads of chances. Loads of crosses, and I think Christian had a couple of chances in the box, and I'm very happy I scored the goal.
And do you think that the extra fitness work in having those 2 weeks off has helped everyone keep going right till the end?
Yeah, the gaffer we trained very hard because we hadn't had a game last week, and after that we got a couple of days off as well, so rest is also important, and then we came back together and worked very, very hard again in the week. I think the hard work pays off today, and I think we showed everyone that we were capable of winning the game today, and we did. And
a great atmosphere as well. The fans put on quite a show.
Yeah, the atmosphere was unbelievable today. My second home game. The fans were brilliant the whole game. They really showed us support today. And then need to go on now. Like every game we need to reach this level, maybe higher, and then we get more points and more points.
Mamadou, congratulations on making your debut for Crystal Palace today. A great victory for the team.
Yeah. We played very, very, very good, very strong, and I think we deserve this 3 points because it was a really difficult game, but everyone played with his heart.
A really nice finish from Patrick Van Aanholt today.
Yeah. He scored a really good goal, but I think it's a goal. This goal come from about all the squad working, because today I think we played together, and it's a really, really positive.
You can tell fans have already taken to you. How did you feel out there? It looked like you'd been playing regularly all season.
Say again?
How did you feel out there? It looked like you'd been playing games all season.
Yeah, no, it's true. My last game was 10 months ago. But during all this time, I still working. I still professional, and today I'm really proud about my performance, because I try to give my best for the team, and it's the most important for me when I am on the pitch. It's just to try to give the best for the squad, for the team, for the fans, for the club.
Yeah, you mentioned the fans. Just finally, how good were they today? They were singing even in the warm-up.
You didn't see. Today we play 12 against 11 because the fans was they was really good with us, and I think they give us a lot of courage to go until the end of this game with lots of energy.
Jason, first of all, local lad leading the team out today. It must be a proud moment for you and your family.
Yeah, it was a proud moment, but obviously I think the most important thing for us was to get a win and get 3 points, and thankfully we've done that.
It was a great finish from Patrick, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. He's been good since he's come in. I think all the new boys have. I think they're helping us, and you could see that today.
And your game today, you had a lot more shots than you've had recently. Is that something you're trying to work on?
Not really. I think it was just the game. I thought we got out of the blocks really sharp. I think that's as good as we've played at home for a long time. I'd probably say this season, and the chances we created, and really at half-time we could have gone in at 2 or 3 up.
And how big a part did the fans play today?
I thought they was massive, I thought from the warm-up they was brilliant, I think the start helped. the fact that they came there enthusiastic today, and you know we started really well. That urged them on. You know we scored a goal in the first half, and that sort of brought it back to Selhurst Park how we know it.
And defensively as well, you had the new guys today, Sakho there, and Luke has done well as well, shielding that defence.
Yeah, he's been great. You know, he shields the defence. You know, and to someone that's sort of come from where he's come from, he talks a lot, which helps. You know, and you need characters on the pitch, and he's a great character for us.
And talking a lot with you as captain today, did you have to act any differently at all? Because obviously we've seen you on the training pitch, you encouraged the young players quite a lot. Did you change your role at all?
Didn't change my role. You know, I think I said wise words with Scotty Dan before the game. You know, and he just said you just got to worry about yourself. You know, and anyone would say today wasn't obviously my best of games. You know, but I thought I sort of tried to lead by example and do what I normally do. Just tried to not do anything different. You know, and the most important thing for me was about getting the 3 points.
And finally, next week, West Brom, different challenge to today. I suppose you know what to expect from Tony Pulis' side.
Different challenge, definitely, you know, but I think we've got to build on it, you know, we've been saying it. I think really main thing for us, the plus today, was our home form all season, or for a long time, has been really bad. And I think we've won at home, you know, and I think that's a massive boost for everybody. You know, we know how good we are away from home, and now we sort of go to West Brom in a great positive mind.
Sam, home victory, clean sheet and a great team performance today.
Crystal Palace rocking today. Fans singing away, which is a stark difference from last time we played at home, so I really appreciate that from them. We gave them something to cheer, which is what I've been talking about for the last 2 weeks, especially with the excitement and the way we took the game to Middlesbrough in the first half. Scored an exceptionally good goal. Patrick Van Aanholt bent it in with his right foot in the bottom corner. Nothing more than we deserved. And the second half was a little different, especially the first 20 minutes when we caused our own problems by we lost our fluency with our passing. We made a few sloppy passes. They changed their style, putting Big Guested up front and just pinging balls off him all the time, which caused us the odd problem or two. But we were resilient, where we haven't been sometimes since I've been here. But that resilience got us through that period, and then we end up winning the game and could have won it more comfortably, I think, if we'd at least got one of the 2 penalties that we had a shout for.
We had a debut today for Mamadou Sakho in defence. Were you pleased with how he did?
Were you?
I was, yeah.
So were I. Yeah, very composed and not just his defending overall, but his composure on the ball, which is what we're looking for. Didn't snatch at it, didn't panic, and passed it out to the midfield players and said, right, lads, you get on with it now. And yeah, very pleased for him. He's very tired because that's his first competitive game this season. And that means that he's got the capacity when he picks the pace of the game up more to get even better. So a very good debut for him and a very good victory for us all.
And just a word on Jason Punchin. He was your captain today, and he grew up just around the corner from the stadium. A proud moment for him.
Well, that's why I did it. You know, Mr. Crystal Palace, you know, when he told me he was just born down the road, I was looking around and I thought that it'd be a great honour for him, and he was really, really pleased to take the armband. And of course, you don't want it to detract from your performance because it's a bit more responsibility, but I thought he was good today. And
different challenge next week, West Brom. I suppose you can take the positives from the team defensive performance today into that. Yes, I mean, I think that we've got to go to West Brom and get a result and try and take a run of games undefeated, build on this massive 3 points we've gained today, and be resilient at West Brom, who are in excellent form this season. Top half of the table with Tony's team, got a lot more flair going forward now. Always been good on the defensive side, as people know, when he came here and rescued the club. So I think that we've got 2 things to concern ourselves about: the quality of their forward play now, and of course trying to break down a very good defensive unit. So a result there would be something that we'll look for and obviously build on next week. But for today, the lads can relax and enjoy the weekend because they deserve to, on the effort and performance they put in.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Sam Allardyce, Patrick Van Aanholt, Mamadou Sakho and Jason Punchin had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Middlesbrough. But make sure to come back next week for a post-match review of the game against West Brom. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace!